Welcome to the Tech Mobility Podcast.
I'm Ken Chester. We have a full docket waiting for us as always, so let's get started. On the docket, a Tesla semi-fire, how one small town shut down an entire industry, and the rebirth of Lincoln. To join the conversation, be it to ask a question, share an opinion, or even suggest a topic for a future program, call or text the Tech Mobility Hotline. That number, 872-222-9793. You can also email the show directly if you prefer, talk@techmobility.show. Be sure to check us out on social media, our YouTube channel, and our podcast streams. We have 2 of them, so that wherever you are, so are we. Normally, right here, I would go into from the Tech Mobility News Desk. But I thought it was time, particularly if you are a first-time or recent listener to the show, to sort of explain a little bit about what tech mobility is, what I try to cover, and why it's important that you know this. First of all, tech mobility is what I always say at the top of the program, is at the intersection of technology and mobility. And as I cover the industries that I cover, and I read a lot of different trade publications, everything from Water World to Progressive Railroading to T&D World, which is an electrical industry magazine, to Automotive News, to the Wall Street Journal, and other industry publications, electrical engineering, media news, all sorts of things. And the reason being that the trade publications that I read and I research have a perspective that you don't always get in regular general interest news. Typically, the average that you consume, wherever you consume outside of this program, wherever you're consuming information, I want to give you perspective. I want to give you the most accurate information on any topic that we discuss on this program. Because I started in radio because I got sick and tired of yelling back at the radio, at the TV, with inaccurate information that I was hearing that was being put out there for public consumption. A lot of it I knew to be factually incorrect and thought I could do a better job. So approximately 7 years ago, I started this program. And my goal always is to be accurate, try to be fair, and try to give you some perspective that explains a little bit about technology around you, and maybe even give you some insight on some things that you may not have seen coming, but is either impacting you right now or soon will be. Which is why we've talked about sustainability. We've talked about artificial intelligence, which we will also talk about in a future show. And we'll talk about ethics. We'll talk about personal security, personal privacy, what big data is doing and why it matters to you. As I said in a recent presentation that I made for a professional group, if you are not at the table, you're on the menu. In other words, if it's free, guess what? You're the product. And this is very true in the case of big tech. And it's important for people to realize just what's going on and maybe some options for you to consider. Also, we have tracked for the last 7 years, I have talked about climate change. And by now, I'm recording this today as Hurricane Milton is beating up on Florida in real time right now. We do not know the extent of this latest hurricane, which hit Central Florida, about 70 miles south of Tampa, at Category 3, which is crazy. And we'll talk about that in a future show as well. And this is on top of Hurricane Helene that was just a few weeks prior. Regular listeners to the show know that I have explained that the impact of climate change means that you will get more extreme weather more often. Not the fact that weather has been extreme. It has, and climate change doesn't have anything to do with that. But the weather will be more extreme more often. That is human-induced. And right now, Milton is a result of warmer than normal water in the Gulf of Mexico. And from what I understand, there may be yet another hurricane behind Milton. That's why we talk about this. We talk about the realities of the value of water, which will impact transportation and impacts where you live, because transportation and where you live go hand in hand. And we talked about during the pandemic, if you could live anywhere, where would you live and why? Technology has made it possible that unless you have an essential job, unless you're a firefighter or a police officer or a factory worker, which requires your presence in a particular place or space at a specific time, then theoretically with a high-speed internet access, you could do your work anywhere on the planet. And I do mean anywhere. And we've talked about the impact of that. I'm still talking about the impact of the pandemic. We're still dealing with everything that has happened and all the ways that those changes that were wrought in the depths of that horrible, horrible time is still impacting our economy, our finances, and the way we choose to live even today, and will for years to come. In some cases, it accelerated trends that were already happening in the country and around the world. And in other cases, it changed things. One of the big changes is the fact that a lot of American businesses are reshoring their operations. They realize that a global supply chain against something as dramatic as a pandemic would shut them down and mess them up. So they decided to shorten that supply chain, but that takes time. It takes years because these supply chains are so intricate. It took decades to build them. It will take years to change them. I talk about all of these things so that you, as a tech-aware consumer, would be better prepared in the world of what's going on around you, and more importantly, why it is. One of the big things that we talk about on this program is the evolution of electric vehicles. I get a lot of pushback from people who said, yeah, you need to tell the whole truth. Why are you so gung-ho on electric vehicles? And why don't you talk about all the other risks and factors and stuff about EVs? If you've been listening to this program over a period of time, you will find that I have, in fact, talked about the limitations in batteries. And in fact, during this program, we're going to talk about a Tesla battery fire and all the impact that it had and why it's important. I've talked about my trip. In fact, earlier this year, I talked about my trip to Chicago in an EV and why that was enough for me not to want to buy one just yet. I've talked about the shortcomings in the public charging space, and how, on average, if it's not a Tesla supercharger, how low the reliability rate as a whole are. I've also talked about attempts to improve that reliability. I've talked about a lot of different things, how EVs are a challenge if you live in an apartment, maybe not near a public charger or at an apartment complex that does not support a couple of parking spaces where you can charge overnight or a period of time at your dwelling. We've talked about street situations where some cities are looking at providing chargers at the curb. We talked about all of that, pro and con. We've talked about renewable energy. We've talked about battery storage, and most importantly, we talked about the evolution of EV batteries, chemistries, pricing, and the dropping of price. One thing is sure during this program, and when it comes to technology, who knows where it's going to go in the next 5 or 10 years. But one thing is definitely sure, change is a constant. And much the same way over 120 years ago, transportation transitioned from horse and buggy to what they called at that time the horseless carriage, the car, the truck, the bus, the commercial vehicle. That was a big change. We're in the midst of a big change with a lot of the same pushback that folks had over 100 years ago. when they derisively said, "Get a horse," to those folks that had a horseless carriage that might have been breaking down all the time. Welcome to the future. And in a nutshell, that is what tech mobility is about. And as I go on this journey and I discover this stuff, I hope you continue to travel with me, because we're going to go occasionally into the weeds, but we're going to have fun doing it, and you're going to learn a lot. A new Tesla semi catches fire and closes down an interstate for a day. You are listening to the Tech Mobility Show.
Are you tired of juggling multiple apps and platforms for meetings, webinars, and staying connected? Look no further than AONmeetings.com, the all-in-one browser-based platform that does it all. With AON Meetings, you can effortlessly communicate with clients, host virtual meetings and webinars, and stay in touch with family and friends, all in one place and for one price. Here's the best part. You can enjoy a 30-day free trial. It's time to simplify your life and boost your productivity. AONmeetings.com, where innovation meets connection. Get started today and revolutionize the way you communicate.
Social media is the main place to be these days, and we are no exception. I'm Ken Chester, the Tech Mobility Show. If you enjoy my program, then you will also enjoy my weekly Facebook videos. From my latest vehicle reviews to timely commentary of a variety of mobility and technology-related topics, these short features are designed to inform and delight you. Be sure to watch, like, and follow us on Facebook. You can find us by typing the Tech Mobility Show in the search bar. Be sure to subscribe to our Facebook page. Social media is the place to be these days, and we're no exception. I'm Ken Chester of the Tech Mobility Show. If you enjoy my program, then you will also enjoy my weekly Instagram videos. From the latest vehicle reviews to timely commentary on a variety of mobility and technology-related topics, these short features are designed to inform and delight you. Be sure to watch, like, and follow us on Instagram. You can find us by typing the Tech Mobility Show in the search bar. For those of you that listen to podcasts, we have just the one for you. Hi, I'm Ken Chester. Tech Mobility Topics is a podcast where I upload topic-specific videos each week. Shorter than the full show, these bite-sized programs are just the thing, particularly if you're interested in a particular topic covered on the weekly radio show. From Apple Podcast to iHeartRadio and many podcast platforms in between, we got you covered. Just enter Tech Mobility Topics in the search bar wherever you listen to podcasts.
Looking for a really tough truck? The choice is Mazda. 12 all-new models. More engine choices, including the most powerful V6 of any import truck. Standard rear ABS. A better basic warranty than Nissan, Toyota, Ford, or Chevy. Lease a B2300 model for $159 a month, $159 down. We make the exceptional affordable. Mazda. It just feels right.
$159 a month, $159 down. Don't you wish for days like that? Mazda B-Series pickup truck, 12 different models. Back in the day, when many of the Japanese companies came into this marketplace selling reliable, tough, and dirt cheap compact pickup trucks, and everybody owned one. And they were bulletproof. All of them were bulletproof. Mazda, no exception. Mazda B-Series for years. Awesome, awesome, awesome. That was from 1994, 30 years ago. I dare you to even try to see if you can buy a Mazda CX-50 for anywhere close to $159 a month, let alone money down. Oh, well. It was a nice memory. In August, a stretch of Interstate 80 in California was closed to eastbound traffic after a Tesla semi caught fire east of Nyack, some 160 miles northeast of San Francisco and approximately 60 miles west of Reno, Nevada. The all-electric rig was not hauling a trailer and is registered to Tesla. According to the California Highway Patrol Gold Run Area Office, the semi veered off the road near the off-ramp for Lang Road and crashed into some trees. Okay. I got questions, and this is topic A. Let's talk a minute. The first question I have, because this happened at 3 in the morning, and this comes to us from the Commercial Carrier Journal. This is a commercial freight publication that we're talking about. First of all, this highway right there is in the middle of the Tahoe National Forest. So any kind of fire could have been really ugly, number one. Number two, Interstate 80 is a major east-west interstate across the whole of the United States. It goes through here in central Iowa. And I believe it is the second or third longest after Interstate 90 in terms of mileage. You're basically looking on Interstate 80, you will run from California all the way to just outside New York City in northern New Jersey. I believe it comes to the end, somewhere near Fort Lee. All that mileage. The first question I have, and the article does not address it, was this truck manned? Was there actually a human driver? Nowhere in this article does it mention that it had a driver or not, but what was very ominous is that it veered off the road and crashed into the trees. It did say nobody was hurt, but it never said whether or not the vehicle was actually being driven. And if it wasn't being driven, was it licensed by the California Department of Transportation to run autonomously? And the fact that it was running in a remote area of California at 3 o'clock in the morning, I have concerns right there. I just have concerns. So let's talk about the fire for a minute. The call came in at just after 3 o'clock. They did not open the eastbound lanes where it crashed until 7 o'clock, roughly 16 hours after the crash. And for a while, it closed the westbound lanes. They opened first. The eastbound lanes opened about 2.5 hours later. The fire department that answered the call said that they dumped thousands, and I quote, many thousands, gallons of water on the blaze. A CAL FIRE aircraft dropped fire suppressant on and around the semi as flames threatened to run away into the roadside bush. Had it done that, being at the edge of the Tahoe National Forest, you could have had another major California fire, but they were able to keep it localized. That incident highlights the gaps and dangers between battery electric technologies and first responders. Let me be direct right here. It's more than a gap. It's a chasm. There is not enough training. There's not enough knowledge about battery chemistries because each is a little different, and depending on the chemistries used would allow the first responders to know how best to fight it. This information is not being shared in the necessary training, the necessary documentation, and the necessary information that they need in order to fight these, and this is going to need to be addressed right now. And I want to say this. There's no federal laws that require an EV manufacturer to be on record with local law enforcement and local fire officials with respect to training, documentation, what they would need to know in case of a thermal runaway resulting in a fire due to an accident or any other type of compromise of a battery pack and an EV. That's not okay. Let me quote, EV fire training is significant and ongoing as we learn more about the EV fire behavior. That is from Mary Eldridge, information officer for CAL FIRE Nevada Yuba Placer, and they told that publication. This semi-accident was their first EV fire. They learned, unfortunately, on the job about the length of thermal runaway and burn down times, coordination of water application versus burn down time, high-level thermal and air monitoring developing trends, and much more. A thermal runaway is when the battery short circuits, overheats, and catches fire. Lithium ion, being a slurry, is probably the most vulnerable to such a thing. New battery chemistry, such as solid-state lithium ion, eliminates those risks and typically are a safer battery. But there is still a risk. It's not a big risk, but it's a risk. And the fire departments need to know. For those of you out there that's saying, oh, all EVs could catch fire, internal combustion engined vehicles catch fire. And if you remember a few years back, BMWs were catching fire in people's driveways. For no reason. They parked them, caught fire. And a few GM vehicles did the same thing. And these were gasoline-powered vehicles. And with all the electronics in vehicles today, it doesn't have to be an EV to have that problem. The EVs are particular because of the batteries and the battery chemistries. According to the fire officials, they had closed down Interstate 80 because they did not want motorists being exposed to the toxic fumes. And at the end of the day, what happened is as the batteries burn and they degrade, they actually feed on themselves and become fuel for the fire that they're causing, giving off all kinds of nasty, dangerous fumes. They ended up waiting it out till it burned out. And if there's a better way, we need to just find it and discover and have a conversation about that. But this is definitely a hole in the whole EV situation, and I think it needs to be legislated because first responders need to know. They absolutely need to know how to deal with this stuff. And I want to know, was this semi-manned or not? And if it wasn't, why not? Because I don't think it had a permit to be operating at that hour of the night on an interstate in an isolated area of California. This small North Carolina town got hit by Hurricane Helene and shut down the semiconductor industry in the United States. This is the Tech Mobility Show. Do you listen to podcasts? Seems that most people do. Hi, I'm Ken Chester, host of the Tech Mobility Show. If you've missed any of our weekly episodes on the radio, our podcast is a great way to listen. You can find the Tech Mobility Podcast just about anywhere you can enjoy podcasts. Be sure to follow us. From Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and many platforms in between, we are there. Just enter the Tech Mobility Podcast in the search bar wherever you listen to podcasts. Social media. It's the place to be, and we're no exception. Hi, I'm Ken Chester, host of the Tech Mobility Show. Several times a week, I post to TikTok several of the topics that I cover on my weekly radio show. It's another way to keep up on mobility, technology, news, and information. I've built quite a library of short videos for your viewing pleasure, so be sure to watch, like, and subscribe. That's the Tech Mobility Show on TikTok. Check it out. It seems that even the most painful lessons learned about the supply chain during the pandemic cannot always be avoided. While this is true that a number of companies are now onshoring a lot of their supply chain within the United States, unpredictable variables like severe or extreme weather events can still trip them up. This is the case in this segment. This is Topic B. I want you to remember this small mining town in western North Carolina, because it's going to figure large in the months to come, depending on how Helene works out and, worst case, Milton. The town is Spruce Pine, North Carolina, about an hour outside Asheville. Spruce Pine, North Carolina. It is one of these quirks of nature that in Spruce Pine, they mine a unique kind of high-quality quartz used in semiconductor manufacturing. Now, let's stop right here. We're not talking about lithium. We're not talking about silicon. We're not talking about cobalt. We are talking about quartz. Quartz. The town is the only place in the world where a uniquely high-quality mineral can be found in such large quantities and produced for such a low price. I said Spruce Pine, North Carolina. What do? Helene wreaked havoc in western North Carolina. We don't even yet know the full extent of the roads that have been washed out, bridges that have been tore up, communications that have been cut off, the mines, what condition they're in, whether they're flooded, whether they can be restarted, whether the people who work the mines can be secure enough with their own situations regarding the hurricane to come back to work. Let's start with some good news, shall we? Most of your computer companies do lay in a supply of a couple of months for such hiccups and interruptions like this. So will it impact the availability of computer chips tomorrow? No. Depending on the level of damage and the two companies that mine in Spruce Pine, North Carolina's ability to get back online and, more importantly, to be able to deliver the goods out of Spruce Pine. Because it makes no difference if you can get the mines up and you, by some miracle, you've got the people who run the mines. If you can't transport the goods, you're still up a creek, so to speak. What happens if this is a 6-month restart? Then the cost of computers are going up. The cost of the computer chips are going up. There'll be supply delays. And the problem is, most American industry they don't like single source anything. They like to multi-source, particularly critical or essential minerals, raw materials, or even essential parts to whatever they're manufacturing, because they don't want the inability to build or make or manufacture what they do due to an inability to get what they need to make it. Unfortunately, Spruce Pine, North Carolina, provides a level quality of quartz that is not replicated anywhere else in the entire world, and lends itself to being retrieved, mined at a rate that is economically and commercially feasible, except in Spruce Pine, North Carolina. Let me quote one of the officials from one of the mining companies. The hurricane has caused widespread flooding, power outages, communication disruptions, and damage to critical infrastructure in the area. Many people in the area, including our employees and their families, are facing displacement and significant disruptions, the company said, adding that the safety of the employees remains a top priority. According to an official from the other mining company, they said, "We have no visibility on when they," and they're talking about the mine in Spruce Pine, "will restart. Repairs at the facilities and in the town could lead to supply chain bottlenecks and temporary price increases on chips and electronics, particularly since the material source in Spruce Pine is so difficult to find across the globe." Keyword there, difficult. And even if they found a high-quality vein of quartz somewhere else in the world tomorrow, it would still be years before it would even be able to be entered into the supply chain. That is the one thing people don't really understand. Raw materials are sourced. Corporations and businesses are sourced. It takes years to bring them up to speed, to be able to scale it up at the volume they need, at the quality they want, at the price that they're willing to pay in order to make it happen. With permits, getting the equipment there, getting it built, getting it tested, getting it online, and being able to deliver the first load anywhere else in the world would take 5 to 10 years. So even if they found a replacement for Spruce Pine quartz tomorrow, it would still be years, and if they even decided to pursue it, it could take years and many billions of dollars to bring a second source online if they could find one. Meanwhile, like a lot of company towns, Spruce Pine's in a world of hurt. The mine's closure could bring an additional economic burden to a small southern town already reeling from a once-in-a-generation natural disaster. Spruce Pine has a population of just over 2,000 and a poverty rate of nearly double that of the national average, which is typical for Appalachia, always has been. The two companies are two of the area's largest employers, with hundreds of workers across the county. Now, an official, a industry watcher says, and I quote, "It's not uncommon for one of the many ingredients in the semiconductor manufacturing process to be primarily sourced from just one geographical location. But even among such places, Spruce Pine stands out. In this case, with 80 to 90% of the global supply coming from Spruce Pine, there's not a lot of great backup plans. The ultra-pure quartz plays a crucial role in the production of semiconductors, which acts as the brains of microchip-powered devices, including smartphones and computers, but also gaming consoles, cars, and medical devices. In fact, one of the managers at one of the mining companies said, inside nearly every cell phone and computer chip, you will find quartz from Spruce Pine, North Carolina. Who knew? So even if you reshore, even if you spend the money within the United States, you still got to deal with the realities of more severe weather more often. And this is the case in Spruce Pine. They were nowhere near the ocean. They're in western North Carolina. It's mountainous. Yet inland flooding basically wiped them out. Nobody saw it coming. They just didn't expect it from a hurricane. And it will be weeks to know the full extent of what's happening, not to mention Milton on top of this, which will also impact it. Slowly but surely, the Lincoln Motor Company is striving to be relevant to automotive consumers. We take a look at their plans. We are the Tech Mobility Show. To learn more about the Tech Mobility Show, start by visiting our website. Hi, I'm Ken Chester, host of the Tech Mobility Show. The website is a treasure trove of information about me and the show, as well as where to find it on the radio across the country. Keep up with the happenings at the Tech Mobility Show by visiting techmobility.show. That's techmobility.show. You can also drop us a line at talk@techmobility.show. Did you know that Tech Mobility has a YouTube channel? Hi, I'm Ken Chester, host of the Tech Mobility Show. Each week, I upload a few short videos of some of the hot topics that I cover during my weekly radio program. I've designed these videos to be informative and entertaining. It's another way to keep up on current mobility and technology news and information. Be sure to watch, like, and subscribe to my channel. That's the Tech Mobility Show on YouTube. Check it out.
Are you tired of juggling multiple apps and platforms for meetings, webinars, and staying connected? Look no further than AONmeetings.com, the all-in-one browser-based platform that does it all. With AON Meetings, you can effortlessly communicate with clients, host virtual meetings and webinars, and stay in touch with family and friends, all in one place and for one price. Here's the best part. You can enjoy a 30-day free trial. It's time to simplify your life and boost your productivity. AONmeetings.com, where innovation meets connection. Get started today and revolutionize the way you communicate.
Social media is the place to be these days, and we're no exception. I'm Ken Chester of the Tech Mobility Show. If you enjoy my program, then you will also enjoy my weekly Instagram videos. From the latest vehicle reviews to timely commentary on a variety of mobility and technology-related topics, these short features are designed to inform and delight you. Be sure to watch, like, and follow us on Instagram. You can find us by typing the Tech Mobility Show in the search bar. From Commander Cody and his Lost Planet Airmen to all sorts of folks down through the years, folks have sung, talked about, driven Lincoln. Lincoln motor cars and vehicles have had a long, long history in America as typically upscale vehicles that at one time were aspirational, like Cadillacs or even the big Chryslers from back in the day. But like everything, automakers have continuously improved their product, have moved upscale, have gotten more aspirational, and it seems in the dust, Lincoln seems to have been a little lost. Since 2023, however, Lincoln has updated all 4 of its nameplates. I remember when Lincoln was a full-line manufacturer. Its dealers have been told to expect additional models from the upscale brand in coming years. Here's a question. Lincoln at one time, when they built a vehicle called a town car, had the highest average owner age of any nameplate. And at that time, town car owners had an average age of 70 years old. On the opposite side of the spectrum, Volkswagen had the lowest age at 32. Is there a place for the Lincoln brand in the North American marketplace? This is Topic C. Let me give you some perspective because I love perspective. And I want to give you an idea of how many vehicles, and this is Lincoln on an upswing, they sold versus just one other vehicle. I'm going to try to find it here. And I don't see the number I'm looking for, but there was a number, and I'm going to keep looking for it. Let me give you a general number, and maybe that's the point. U.S. sales of the Ford Motor Company luxury brand rose 23% the first 7 months of this year. The brand's market share is up 1 percentage point, and an internal company goal of at least 100,000 full-year deliveries appear within reach for the first time since 2020. Let me give you perspective against that number, because that number, that's nice. But they're aiming at a Toyota, actually a Lexus model, the Lexus RX. The Lexus RX all by itself last year sold 114,000 vehicles, one model. All of Lincoln sold less than 100,000 last year, and they're looking to sell 100,000. In today's world, 100,000 vehicles isn't much. And it takes a lot of money to maintain even a small dealer network, the parts, the service, the training, in order to make this experience. And nowadays, if you're reaching for a Lincoln Navigator, you are paying pretty close, if not in excess of 6 digits to own one. So you come to owning a vehicle like that, regardless of make, with a lot of expectations for customer care, customer service, and a responsive dealer body and automaker. When you drop over $100,000, yeah, you are expecting people to be responsive if you're going to own their brand or own what they're selling. Lincoln has not always been in the minds of the American consumer. And honestly, with so many new nameplates, Genesis, a resurgent Hyundai and Kia, Cadillac is getting back on track again. There's so many different choices, including choices that didn't exist in Lincoln's heyday. Tesla, Rivian, Lucid. These are vehicles didn't even exist, weren't even part of the conversation, but yet are all upscale. A Lucid Air is a 6-digit vehicle, and I've had the opportunity to drive one. It's amazing. Hummer by GMC, 6-digit vehicle. And it takes no prisoners. It has the ability to crab walk, to actually go diagonally. That's built in. Super cool. For many years, people regarded Lincoln as gussied up Fords. Mercury more so. Lincoln has tried to diversify. They tried with the Lincoln Blackwood. They've tried with the Lincoln Mark LT. The Blackwood barely sold 11,000 units before it croaked. The Mark LT was a lightly redone F-150. If I was going to do it, I would have spent more money and made it more differentiated more. It appears that Lincoln may have learned their lessons down through the years. One of their bright spots, always has been, is their top-of-the-line vehicle, which is the Lincoln Navigator. It came out back in 1998, and they've been building it for 26 years. In 2025, they're coming out with a brand spanking new one, and they want to keep that momentum going. They're looking at building some other vehicles that they're adding to this. At one time, they were going to add a 3-row electric crossover, but since Ford postponed that program, Lincoln is not going to get a variant of that. One nameplate that Lincoln keeps bringing back that just doesn't seem to catch fire, of the 4 nameplates they got, It is not a surprise to me that the one that's not doing well is the Aviator. Lincoln tried it in 2003, which was basically a fancy Explorer. It didn't take then. Right now, Aviator last year was Lincoln's slowest seller, although officials have said it plays a key role in attracting new customers from brands such as Buick with a 70% conquest rate. My problem is Lincoln and Buick have drivers the same age and are on the wrong side of the spectrum. You don't grow a brand courting the oldest folks. And I'm sorry, I'm close to their demographic. But you don't build a brand courting us. You build a brand, an aspirational brand, by attracting younger folk to the brand and giving them a reason to want to own what you're selling. 2023, while sales were up for Lincoln, it was also one of the most unprofitable years for dealers of Lincoln. They got new product coming, and certainly they've been improving. But the big question is it too little, too late? Is Lincoln still relevant in the minds of the average consumer looking to buy an SUV that's upscale? Is Lincoln on anybody's list anymore? And if so, what attracts you to the brand, and what is the value proposition Lincoln brings to the party that other brands who have spent way more money and invested in product are not bringing? And is it enough to want to buy a Lincoln? That's the question. Lincoln thinks there's room for itself, and they're expanding their portfolio, which they need to do. Time will tell if they will have some other breakout products in addition to their long-time flagship, the Navigator, which was a home run from the day they made it. We've come to the end of our program for this week. Be sure to join me again right here next time. This has been the Tech Mobility Show.
The Tech Mobility Show is a copywritten production of Tech Mobility Productions Incorporated. Any rebroadcast, retransmission, or any other use is prohibited without the written consent of Tech Mobility Productions Incorporated.
For those of you that listen to podcasts, we have just the one for you. Hi, I'm Ken Chester. Tech Mobility Topics is a podcast where I upload topic-specific videos each week. Shorter than the full show, these bite-sized programs are just the thing, particularly if you're interested in a particular topic covered on the weekly radio show. From Apple Podcast to iHeartRadio and many podcast platforms in between, we got you covered. Just enter Tech Mobility Topics in the search bar wherever you listen to podcasts. Social media. It's the place to be, and we're no exception. Hi, I'm Ken Chester, host of the Tech Mobility Show. Several times a week, I post to TikTok several of the topics that I cover on my weekly radio show. It's another way to keep up on mobility, technology, news, and information. I've built quite a library of short videos for your viewing pleasure, so be sure to watch, like, and subscribe. That's the Tech Mobility Show on TikTok. Check it out. To learn more about the Tech Mobility Show, start by visiting our website. Hi, I'm Ken Chester, host of the Tech Mobility Show. The website is a treasure trove of information about me and the show, as well as where to find it on the radio across the country. Keep up with the happenings at the Tech Mobility Show by visiting techmobility.show. That's techmobility.show. You can also drop us a line at talk@techmobility.show. Do you listen to podcasts? Seems that most people do. Hi, I'm Ken Chester, host of the Tech Mobility Show. If you missed any of our weekly episodes on the radio, our podcast is a great way to listen. You can find the Tech Mobility Podcast just about anywhere you can enjoy podcasts. Be sure to follow us. From Apple Podcasts to iHeartRadio and many platforms in between, we are there. Just enter the Tech Mobility Podcast in the search bar wherever you listen to podcasts.